The movie begins with a group of Soviet and British looters traveling to an abandoned abbey in Romania's Carpathian Mountains. They climb the slopes believing there is a gold mine hidden underneath the sanctuary. Upon entering, they find a hatch, and below it they discover intricate carvings on the walls and a mosaic on the floor depicting winged demons. So they blow up the mosaic to open a passage into the cave. Unfortunately, the explosion triggers a landslide, causing the abbey to collapse and sealing their way out. The group wanders through the darkness searching for an exit, until they start hearing strange clicking sounds coming from deep within the underground chambers. Years later, scientist Dr. Nikolai and biologist Catherine decide to collaborate, believing there is an undiscovered ecosystem underneath the abandoned abbey. So they hire a diving team consisting of spelunking brothers Jack and Tyler McAllister, survival specialist Top, rock climber Charlie, sonar expert Vince, first scout Philip, and cameraman Alex. The next day, the diving team arrives at the expedition site by helicopter, and the scientist is already waiting for them. The scientist shows Jack the excavation site, while Tyler introduces the biologist to their modified rebreather, which allows a diver to stay submerged for a full 24 hours. The night before the expedition, Jack holds a briefing for the team. He explains that underneath the cave entrance is a cavern 90 meters deep, which the scientist named the Hall of Titans. In the middle of the Hall of Titans is a flooded passage leading to an underwater tunnel, and beyond that is a dry cavern where the scientist and the biologist can set up a base camp and collect samples. Afterward, the scientist explains to Tyler the history of the abbey. According to local legends, the monastery was built specifically to seal the cave off from winged demons. The scientist also interprets the mosaic they recovered, explaining that the Knights Templar once entered the cave, were attacked by the creatures, and were never seen again. At dawn, the diving team descends into the Hall of Titans alongside the scientist. Upon arriving, the team is in awe of its beauty. Jack then prepares the first scout for the first dive. The first scout dives in and travels through the underwater passage. The diving team tracks his progress on a computer screen, and his signal cuts out as expected. He scans the passageway using a mapping device. Meanwhile, Jack tells Tyler to be ready in case the scout doesn't check in within 10 minutes. But the first scout comes back online sooner than expected, announcing he has reached the dry cavern and sending back a map covering roughly 4 kilometers of terrain. Suddenly, a mole rat attacks the first scout, which the team laughs at, but then the monitor goes dark and the scout's signal drops again. So Jack, Charlie, and Top follow the route through the underwater tunnel, unspooling a rope to mark their path. The cameraman photographs everything along the way. During the dive, they come across bones at the bottom. When they arrive at the dry cavern and pull their equipment onto dry ground, they find the first scout's rebreather lying on the floor. Then the first scout appears from an opening and holds up a boot he found, implying the Soviet and British explorers had reached this far before. Meanwhile, the sonar expert and Tyler make their way through the tunnel, attaching lights to the rope left by Jack's team. The sonar expert separates from Tyler to track a mole rat he spotted, but an unknown creature attacks him when he reaches a dry area, causing him to fall into the water. He tries to reach his water scooter, but the creature drags him under. The scooter slams into the wall and explodes, triggering a cave-in. The strong current pushes Tyler back through the passage toward the base. The team helps Tyler to his feet and immediately starts looking for the sonar expert. So Jack and Top return to the water to search, and they come across stone boulders blocking the exit. While removing the rocks, Jack cuts his hand. Just then, they find what remains of the sonar expert. His rebreather is ripped to shreds. Upon returning to base, Jack explains the situation. Their only exit is blocked, and the workers above ground won't miss them for another 12 days, since that was the original plan. Afterward, the first scout confronts Jack about what happened to the sonar expert, and Jack tells him their friend is dead. Jack asks the scientist what could have attacked him, and the scientist says the mole rat is the only plausible answer, since it's the only creature they've seen so far, though it's still unknown whether it's at the top of the food chain or prey for something bigger. The survival expert recommends searching for another way out, but the scientist opposes this and says they should wait for a rescue team. Jack shuts this down immediately, explaining they are too deep underground for any outside team to reach them. The only rescue team they have is themselves. The scientist and the biologist examine a parasite found in the mole rat samples and salamander skin under the microscope. Meanwhile, Jack and the survival expert move further from the base searching for an exit and discover a rusted, torn flashlight in the water, indicating someone else had made it this far. Then they crawl into a tight space and Jack peers through a small opening, seeing numerous scorpions. Suddenly, the same unknown creature grabs Jack and attacks him in midair, but Jack fights back, cutting off the creature's claw, and he falls to the ground. The survival expert immediately brings Jack back to base to inject antibiotics and treat the wound on his back. Jack brings the severed claw with him, and the biologist examines it afterward. However, it's impossible to identify the creature without DNA testing. The biologist explains that every cave organism discovered so far originally came from the surface and adapted over time, losing pigmentation and sight while developing a heightened sense of hearing and smell. This means the cave is a self-contained ecosystem with its own rules. Eventually, the group decides to move deeper into the cave. The first scout suggests staying behind, but the survival expert reminds him that waiting alone in the dark is a bad idea. So the entire team pushes on together. Along the way, they find a human bone with bite marks, then reach a fork in the path. Jack scouts ahead, and the first scout asks why it's always Jack doing the scouting. The survival expert explains it's just how things are done. Jack returns and leads the group to the left route, while the first scout scans the right path. Due to fear, the first scout doesn't follow the map he found. Afterward, the team climbs a wall. Jack struggles due to his injured hand, and the survival expert suspects infection. Jack says they'll rest once they find water, but the survival expert says there is none. Jack insists he can smell it. Sure enough, the team reaches water and takes a break. The cameraman tries to film during the rest, but Jack accidentally knocks into him and the camera falls into the water. Jack apologizes and then notices the camera drifting, indicating there is a current. Jack steps away from the group and starts shaking and blinking rapidly. He develops a heightened sense of hearing and can make out his teammates whispering about him from across the cavern. Tyler approaches to check on him, and Jack says he can't protect everyone if they don't trust him. The team follows the current and reaches a set of violent rapids, which appear to be the only way forward. The survival expert goes first, followed by the first scout and the others one by one. Tyler and the biologist prepare to go, but suddenly, the biologist gets stuck, as if something is holding her. Tyler can't help because the current is too strong. He gets swept into the rapids, catches a glimpse of a wounded scientist lying on a rock, reaches the edge and goes over the waterfall. The biologist follows after him. The biologist and Tyler swim toward the center until the rock climber resurfaces and shouts that there is something in the water. Tyler looks down and sees a creature resembling an eel moving beneath them. Jack comes over the radio searching for the scientist and the rock climber. Tyler responds that he is with the rock climber and the biologist, while the wounded scientist is still up near the waterfall. The survival expert lights a flare, the cameraman locates the group, and Jack arrives shortly after. Both teams are reunited. Then they hear the scientist screaming as he falls into the water. Jack dives toward him, but a creature attacks the scientist and drags him underwater. The biologist tries to go after him, but the survival expert holds her back. Jack follows the blood trail along the surface and watches as the creatures pull the scientist into a crevice and kill him. Jack returns to the team and announces that the scientist is dead. The biologist blames Jack, saying he is responsible because he chose to go deeper. Nevertheless, the group moves on, reaching dry ground with a flowing river and a stone wall ahead. Jack tells Tyler they should scout first before climbing. The team pushes back, pointing out there is a current ahead of them. Jack explains that the current is a trap and the team doesn't know what they're dealing with. The rock climber offers to go up first, but Jack refuses. While the team prepares to ascend, the biologist tells Tyler that Jack is ill and no longer fit to lead, but Tyler defends his brother. Suddenly, the rock climber begins scaling the wall at an inhuman speed, driving pitons into the rock and reaching the top edge in seconds. Unfortunately, a creature immediately advances on her and she drops back to the edge, barely holding on. She recovers and runs along the wall to transfer to a different surface. That's when the creature is finally seen clearly. It's human-sized with wings. It flies straight at her. The rock climber manages to set it on fire but sustains too many wounds and dies. The survival expert lowers her body from the wall, and the team covers her. Then they all notice Jack's eyes. His pupils have become vertical and inhuman. The biologist finally understands what is happening. The parasite entered Jack's bloodstream through the cut on his hand and has been attacking his nervous system. The parasite mutates the host to help them survive the underground environment, which explains Jack's heightened senses. This is exactly what happened to the earlier explorers. They transformed into the winged creatures and began hunting anyone who came down after them. Due to this, the first scout starts questioning Jack's judgment and decides the group should split up. Tyler and the survival expert stay with Jack to scale the wall, while the biologist and the cameraman go with the first scout through the water current. Jack and the other two arrive in a cavern filled with human skeletons, realizing it is the ancient battleground depicted in the Abbey's mosaic. The local legends prove to be true. The Abbey's residents created the mosaic to warn people about the danger below. Then they spot daylight coming through a crack in the ceiling, which means they've found their exit. Tyler goes back to find the others, but upon arriving, he finds only their abandoned, blood-soaked rebreathers on the ground. Then he hears the first scout screaming for help. He follows the sound and finds the scout wedged in a crevice. He's about to save him, but the creature drags the first scout away further. Tyler squeezes himself through the crack to follow, but upon arriving, he finds the first scout impaled on a stalactite. He is dead. Meanwhile, the biologist activates the mapping device to temporarily blind a creature and makes her way back to Jack and the survival expert. Upon returning, they stumble upon the cameraman with more creatures right behind him. Everyone runs for the cavern, and Tyler rejoins the group. They disassemble the rebreathers and distribute the remaining oxygen tanks, but a creature steals one of the rebreathers containing 2 tanks. So Jack goes to retrieve it himself. The rest of the team submerges in the center of the water to hide from the surrounding creatures. The cameraman tries to defend them with the mapping device, but gets killed while running toward the water. Tyler tries to save him, but it's too late. Just then, Jack retrieves the stolen rebreather and hands the 2 tanks to Tyler. Then, Jack makes his decision. He puts a flare inside the rebreather canister to create an explosion. Tyler tries to stop his brother, but the whole cavern collapses. Tyler and the other 2 immediately submerge themselves and swim through the underwater passage. After swimming for hours, they resurface outside next to the river on the Carpathian mountainside. The movie ends with the 3 survivors making their way back to the city. The survival expert gets into a cab and says goodbye to Tyler. Tyler and the biologist go to a cafe and sit together. Tyler asks if Jack could have survived on the surface. The biologist answers that she first thought the parasite could only survive underground, but now she is uncertain because it seems to want to get out. Before leaving, she kisses Tyler on the cheek goodbye. Then just before she disappears into the crowd, she removes her glasses for a moment, revealing the same mutated vertical pupils that Jack had. Tyler realizes the parasite has infected the biologist too, so he follows her in a hurry, but loses her in the crowd.